Last time we talked about a streaker who lost 5 streaks at once, and we ended that podcast with, how do you know when you've arrived?
I know. What do you mean when you say that? How do you know when you've arrived? What do you mean?
Well, I think, so one of the things that, in the journey, taking joy in the journey and those type of things, we talked a little bit about that last time as far as joy in the journey. I don't think I elaborated enough on it in the sense that the joy in the journey is found in my book through the streaks that I set. That's how I find joy in the journey, is I'm seeing my growth along the way. And the only way I can see my growth is through the things that I'm doing on a consistent basis. So I'm going to get to where your question here. What is the question that I'm asking when I say I've arrived? Have I arrived? There are things that we have in our lives, aspirations, goals, desires, things of who I want to be. So think about the be statement and who I want to be. How do I know I've become that person? That's really how do I know when I've arrived there?
Right.
When I've actually gotten there.
When I'm that person.
When I'm that person. So, for example, I want to be, and I'll just go with, I want to be a proficient, or I'm going to go more professional for just a second, then we'll go personal. So I want to be a trusted advisor as a sales professional. All right. How do I know I've arrived there?
Right. When can you say, I am trusted?
I'm now trusted.
Right. That's a good question.
I don't think it's possible.
You don't think it's possible?
No, I don't think that and here's the reason why. Is when you're on this growth journey, when you're moving along the path that you want to go, there's always just a little bit more growth that I can get to. And because here's the thing, if I'm not growing, what am I doing?
Not growing, stagnant, staying.
Decaying.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. If you're not going one direction,
If I'm not growing, I'm decaying.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that there's anything that maintains a certain level of.
That's true. If you leave a house alone, it doesn't just stay that way. It decays.
Which, a great point. We've got a house next to us that has not been occupied for any length of time the whole time we've lived here in Georgia. I mean, this has been for almost 5 years now.
And you would think, wouldn't it be nice if there's no one in it, so it's not getting used. It's just going to stay exactly the way it is. But that is not the way that life is at all.
Yeah, we were talking. It was kind of fun because we were talking with the owner who was over, and something had happened and they needed to make repairs. And one of the things that he said that kind of stuck in my brain was that this home needs a family in order to keep it up or to keep it growing. Right. I mean, those weren't his exact words, but that's what I heard from him, is that the family that lives within the walls of the home make that home thrive and survive and continue to go forward.
But without it, it just was falling apart.
It would fall apart. And isn't that interesting? If you look at, since you brought up homes, let's just stay on that. In any movie that you go see where there's a home that's decaying, usually what's happened is there's no one, it's been abandoned.
Right. No one's taking care of it
There's
anymore.
no one in it, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's not growing anymore. There's nothing there. It seems odd to say that a house, an inanimate object, is not growing. But
if it's not being maintained, which would be growth in a home, then it is falling apart.
So how do you know when you've arrived?
Well, another thing we were talking about the other day is this idea of a results only environment. Like,
yeah,
results are important, and being able to have those results. And so staying with the professional world, if I'm a sales representative and I want to be a trusted advisor, if I'm not delivering results, it doesn't matter how trusted I am. Exactly. So we were talking a little bit about that too, that it's like, okay, so which is the priority here? Is it that, you enjoy the journey, or is the results really what matters? And we had an interesting conversation about this, because we live in a world of results. And results are important.
Oh, yeah.
And any one of us, most of us live and die by those. I mean, you can be the greatest person in the world if you're not getting those results at work, though. They're,
Well, and some would say that how do you know you're the greatest person in the world if you're not getting the results?
That's a good point.
But on the same note, there's a lot of it looked like you had a little thought there.
Nope, but tickle in my nose.
Oh, I was going to stop because sometimes when you have those little tickles, there's you're on the verge of this absolutely phenomenally fantastic wisdom thought. And so I want to make sure and capture them because I know that that when you have them, sometimes you'll say them, sometimes you won't.
Keep going. You're on the thought train today.
So as you look at it and consider, growth, results and growth, and as I aspire to be a certain person, like you said, results matter. I mean, it does make a difference. I mean, there are things that I need to do to get results, but if I start to focus on the results, and we talked a little bit about this as far as inputs versus outputs, if I start to focus on the outputs, then that seems to stunt growth.
Well, it's an interesting thing because it's an interesting thing where if you focus too much on the output, on the result only,
right,
then you're going to end up in the wrong place, I think. But if we ignore the result, can we ignore results? Can we only focus on the input?
I don't think so.
I don't think
so. I mean, there has to be something well, and let me give a real life example. So writing the book, we had written 12 manuscript drafts, started over completely on 3 of them. And then our publisher, we got a publisher, Page 2 Publishing, and we were assigned an editor, and all of a sudden we had deadlines.
Right.
And
that's when it became real. I mean, I really felt that way, that I was like, okay, we have deadlines. Now it's real.
Right. And I remember putting up on the chart, so I teach the 4 disciplines of execution that's offered by Franklin Covey. I mean, that's what I do in my consulting work is 4 disciplines of execution, helping organizations move from strategy to execution. And so I thought, well, I'll just set a wildly important goal, need to have the book, we had the deadline, so I needed to, it was, and I forgot exactly what it was, but the deadline, but I knew it was like 3 months in the future. And so it's like, okay, we got to get this many pages edited and written by this time.
Day.
And so I figured out the input, or in setting a goal, it's all about the lead measure. And the lead measure was edit at least 5 pages a day. So that meant either we were going to write or modify at least 5 pages a day to reach this goal.
Right.
And at any point in time, if we were off of that input, we would not get the output of the goal.
Right. We wouldn't hit the...
But would we have been doing that input had I not had the goal?
This is where I love that say that one more time?
Would I have had the input of, you and I 5 pages a day had I not had the goal or the deadline to get done?
See, that's what I think. I think these deadlines and these goals push us to being able to get these things done. Like, it's an important part of having, like, goals are important.
Yeah.
And they help us get to where we need to go. I loved that. So we were talking about the book, and we were talking about the streak that you had to write 1 sentence a day.
Right.
And that was the foundation of what you were doing.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, this goal came into play, which was finish the book.
Right.
By a certain deadline. The interesting thing to me is that you've continued that streak, writing 1 sentence a day.
Even after the book was published. I mean, it's still going strong.
Now, had
today.
we not had a deadline, have there been things that you wished you had added to the book?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, even now today, I wish we would have added the growth model to the book, because the growth model goes through and it shows exactly how habits, routines, streaks, and goals all work together within a framework in order to get you to where you want to be. I'd love to have added that.
Right. So, and there's been a lot of things as we've gone forward that we've looked at and thought, oh, I wish we'd added that to the book. So it's an interesting thing. Without a goal, without a deadline, I don't know that we ever would have finished the book, because we're always thinking of things. Oh, I want to add this. Oh, I want to add that. Oh, I want to add this. So that's where, when we talk to how do you know when you've arrived? And you bring up a really good question, because for me, when we published the book, okay, the book is published.
It's now published, and it was released on September 22nd.
it had arrived.
Yeah.
However, we continue to keep wanting to write.
But I don't feel right, and I don't feel like I've arrived as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just because a book was published, I didn't feel like I now am and the way that I stated in my B statement is an engaging, energizing, enthusiastic, entertaining, thought-provoking, persuasive writer. I feel like I've got so much more to go on that. And so the streaks then continue to keep that alive.
Right.
And is it interesting? So this is another point that we brought up, because after the book was published and released, I think in the past, before I did streaks, I'd have been like, okay, I'm going to take a breather for a while.
Right. I'm going to take a little break. I've just accomplished something big. I'm just going to sit back for a minute. Which the interesting thing is that there is so you've run a marathon, and we've talked about this before. You've accomplished something big, and you're like, and you've put a lot of energy into that thing, because
hit a goal.
You hit that goal, and you expended more energy than what you could sustain always. I mean, that's kind of part of what, in my mind, is the goal, is that you're expending more energy than what you would be able to do all the time. For that period of time, because a goal has that deadline, you're going to push hard.
Yeah.
You're going to push hard to reach that finish line and cross over it. Once you cross it, you know that you never intended to sustain that level of effort indefinitely.
Right.
That was the point of a goal, was that you're going to expend greater effort than what you normally would. You're going to cross that finish line, and you're going to be like, all right, I did that. What I love about the streaks is that you don't go back to zero. You don't stop doing all of that. You continue to do it at that consistent pace.
Yeah.
Setting yourself up for the next, in my mind, goal. You give but that time in between, that it's not sustainable to live at the level you were when you were working toward that goal. It's not like you just completely stopped doing what you were doing. You're still doing it. You're still adding and growing until you're ready to set that next goal, to focus and cross that next deadline, next finish line.
When I look at the marathon metaphor that you just brought up, I think of an individual that we recently talked to who talked about running a marathon and then never running again.
Yes. She was like, I'm done.
I'm never going to do this again. And it was like, I have expended as much energy as I ever want to expend on that. Now, whether or not that's good or bad, we can debate that. But I think more so what I look at is when I have a set of streaks and guided by who I want to be. So I want to be physically fit. Then I may have a goal to run a marathon, but I'm going to go back to the success of my streak. Whether or not I succeed or fail at that particular goal, I've got, around being physically fit, 3 or 4 streaks that I continue to maintain even after the victory or the defeat. Either one. I keep them going.
And that's so you talk a lot about the runner that broke the 2-hour marathon.
Elliott Kipchoge, one of my favorite stories in all of sport. It's awesome.
How come it's your favorite?
Because Elliott Kipchoge, one of the things as I've studied him and looked at him is he knew who he wanted to be. He actually has a B statement. He wants to be a runner who, and I have to remember exactly how he says this because it's this great thing. When I look at B statements, one of the things I try to do in my B statement that I work with others on is to not make it a comparative B statement. In other words, I want to be the best. I want to be the world record holder. Because a comparative B statement, I think, sets up the wrong set of streaks. What you want to do is set up a B statement that is a high level of, or whatever you see aspirationally. So when we talk about, again, have I arrived? What do you want to arrive? Well, his was to be able to make a mark in the world of running and be an influence in the lives of children all over the world.
Oh, that's a great B statement.
Isn't that a great aspirational B statement?
Yeah.
And so what he does then, I was reading an interview that he was having. He was this was his regular marathon running, not break the 2-hour barrier.
So that was his goal, was to break. No one had ever run a marathon in under 2 hours.
And just before that, he was being interviewed, and they had expected him in, I think it was the London Marathon, to break the world record. And the reporter asked him and said, are you going to be disappointed if you break the world record or don't break the world record? And he said, well, that's not my focus. My focus is to get a personal best. And if my personal best, in other words, he's competing against himself. And he said, if my personal best breaks the record, then fine. But it's just me with my personal best. And I think that's what a good, accurate B statement will do, is it will point you in the right direction, and it will point your streaks in the right direction. So now, breaking the 2 hour barrier. The reason I love who he is and what he's done as far as breaking the 2 hour barrier, the 2 hour marathon barrier, is because he didn't do it for notoriety. He didn't do it in order to, bring fame and glory to himself, even though he's absolutely phenomenal. He did it because, like he said, I want to be a person that makes a mark in the world of running and be an example to children all over the world. And now that gave him the opportunity to continue his mission. Now, after he broke that 2 hour, guess what?
He's probably still running.
Yeah, he went out running again. I mean, it's one of those things where you get these high highs and it's really wonderful and it's fantastic. And then the next day it's like, you know what? I'm going to go out and probably jog a mile.
Right.
And that's and there is something satisfying about that. There's something real about that.
As you're talking, what I'm hearing, because he tried the first time
in 2017,
and he didn't
get it. He 2 hours 25 seconds.
Is that amazing? 25 seconds.
He had to run 1 second faster per mile in order to break it.
How fast did he have to run per mile?
Or 1.2 seconds per mile. It had to be 4 minutes 35 seconds or faster per mile.
So he had to run
break it.
a 4.5 miles.
4.5 minute mile.
A 4.5 minute mile for 26.2 miles.
Yes.
Consistently.
Have you ever tried to run that?
Nope.
It is insane.
That is.
I've gone around the track once at like 63 seconds. He had to go around the track. I don't even remember. I forget. It's like 106 laps. And every single one of them had to be less than or right around 70 seconds.
Which is amazing. So what I was going to say, though, is that I loved, because I can't even,
I know
that's mind-blowing
that
he can.
That level of eliteness is absolutely phenomenal.
It is. But what I loved is what you said, is that after he tried to break it and didn't, he went out running.
Yeah.
And after he tried to break it and he did, he went out running. So what I love is that these goals that we set for ourselves, these places that we want to get to, that we've accomplished something, they help to define at some level who we are. But I also think it's important that we don't stop there, that we don't have that be that these defining moments are the only moments.
Right.
But that these defining moments are made up because of all these other moments that we keep going.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like streaking helps me with, is to be able to keep going in those moments as well, so that I have those defining moments.
Yeah. What I see too is that it keeps me in that place where I haven't arrived, because as soon as I get to the place where I've arrived, and I've felt this before, well, I'm here. I'm to the top of the mountain.
Right.
It is one step to falling off.
Yes. I see two.
Do you see what I mean?
Yes. I see two problems with this idea of arrival. One is that you actually get there in your mind and you're like, all right, you just stop trying.
I'm there.
I'm done.
I'm done.
I've done it. I've done it all.
Through. And I have grown as much as I am going to grow.
I'm now done.
And I'm now through.
So that's the first problem. The second problem that I see with this idea of arrival is what we often talk about, kind of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. This idea that you can get to this thing, but really nobody can ever get to an end of a rainbow. So it creates this level of frustration that you're trying to get someplace.
Really? But what if you could get to the end of the rainbow? Is it possible?
So therein lies the challenge. Is that so if we can be able to focus and recognize that what we're wanting to do is this growth, and that's what I love about streaking, goals, habits and routines, is being able to employ all of those things to continue that growth. So I love having a goal. I love reaching. I love crossing that finish line. I also love having streaks that help me stay consistent, that keep me going when I'm not working towards that goal at that moment. But it doesn't mean that thing just completely goes out of my life.
So I have a question for you.
Going.
You, and this is a question that we've often asked each other. If we didn't have a book, if we didn't have a podcast, if we weren't doing what we're doing right now, would you still have streaks?
I would.
Why?
Because I love the things that I'm doing because of it. Yeah. I love that I'm writing in my journal consistently. I love that when there's a thought in my head about something that I want to get better at, that I've got a methodology that I'm like, okay, I can work towards that. I can do that. I love that I can look at it and be like, okay, is this a goal or is this a streak? And for me, I would totally keep streaking because it has helped me have a way to be consistent about the things that are important to me in my life.
I'm right there with you, 100%. I would continue streaking because it has basically, for me in my life, I finally have a framework and a methodology that allows me to, like you said, put something in play, employ. I employ streaking to do or to continue growing. You had mentioned, you said to be better. And I look at it and say to actually grow and improve on a daily, consistent basis.
Intentionally,
mm-hmm. Deliberately, with purpose, with direction. And when we, with becoming who I want to be, I'm never going to arrive there. Now, that may sound a little bit discouraging, but here's what's not discouraging is I have a methodology now that will allow me to continue to strive to get to who I want to be, to that aspirational statement all the time.
Do we ever really want to completely arrive? Because in my mind, that goes back to that empty house.
Right.
That you're like, okay, I've arrived. Okay. The house is now. That's not what I want. I want to keep filling that house and working on that house and building it and growing it and maintaining it. I don't ever want to stop doing that.
Never want to retire.
Nope. I want to keep growing.
So do I. That's all the time we have. And I still got one more thing that I need to talk to you about, but we'll have to save it for the next podcast. It's the new lexicon that we have in our language where we say, have you completed your streaks? Have you gotten your streaks done?
Oh.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that next time. If you would like to share with us what's going on with you in streaking, let us know. Jeffrey at JEFFERY at streakingmastery.com.
Or Jamie, JAMI at streakingmastery.com.
Until then, read the book.
Streaking. Download the app. It'll help.
And keep streaking.
Among the rush, do one push up, become a better you. It's the small and simple things that make you grow into what you're hoping. You're in a hurry, don't even worry. It's too simple not to do. It's the little things that make a better you. A better you.